What's up, everybody? The CEO is out again. He is traveling and he has left us the reins. So we're going to take this one and we're East Coasting it tonight. No Sean. So we're going to start early, which is a rarity for us. But we're going to talk about CGC news and bad advice you get from Reddit and other comic forums. So stick with us.
Hey,
how's it
What's
going,
up, gentlemen?
Living a dream.
All right, we got Rick tonight. It's not just not Mercenaut for once. We left them all hanging last week as a rough night.
I know.
But you guys did well. You kicked butt.
Probably
You're
the best
professionals.
episode in a while.
So good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So CGC sent out an email today that I'm sure a few of you saw. Well, probably most of you if you have a pulse and collect comics. Let's be honest.
Man, my head is up my ass. What?
Oh, you're the one guy that didn't read it?
No.
Well, you and the support staff at CGC.
Yeah. So apparently now they recognize newsstand editions and multi-pack on the CGC label. Weren't they doing newsstands already though?
They were doing them in very specific situations. Like DC, like those super deep blade cuts of DC where it was like, post 2000, and then the occasional like book where it was like there was either like a price difference or whatever, were getting that recognition. But typically if it was just same price and only difference was a barcode, they usually didn't acknowledge it.
It's fair. I mean, I it seems hodgepodge when you see it, when you don't. I don't know if it's when people actually request it on the label or they don't.
I mean, I used to. I would always type it in and be like newsstand, and rarely ever got it. So
okay, so it no longer requires a difference in price.
No, so anything, they basically have put the work in to figure out those time periods when newsstands first. Like basically, their logic is if there was a newsstand and direct edition available, they will acknowledge that it is a newsstand. So, case in point, just for the sake of, since we're talking about this and looking at them, I probably have some somewhere. Let's see. So, let's say we're talking about Black Cat first appearance. So you have the scenario of, So you have the scenario of that where you have a clear direct edition and you have a newsstand. They will acknowledge that it's a newsstand. Or in this scenario here where you have these two guys, they will now start acknowledging that this is exclusively a newsstand edition.
Look at you.
Nice.
With the examples, even though I was pulling it up on CGC, but for those of you that are not familiar, I'm sure most of you are deviants and watch us enough, but anybody new that gathers in, the newsstand is traditionally known as the barcode. You'll see the strike through, you'll see images. As you get to other things, you can see second prints and things like that within the barcode. So a lot of information in that little corner that most of us will take for granted, but it can mean sometimes double or more on some of these books. An ASM 300 may be $5,000 for a 9.8 standard, but closer to 10 for a newsstand, and several other books lots of other books fall into that category.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about why that makes it, and it's funny because I think different members of the crew have different opinions on that. That if you're talking about something like the Black Cat, it really doesn't matter because actually probably at that point direct edition would have been more rare than a newsstand because newsstands outnumbered comic book shops or people who had direct subscribership to a Marvel comic. You get to like the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and that flips where comic book shops outnumber newsstand distribution. So they're going to be in theory rare, but also the fact that a newsstand edition was probably not as well maintained as a direct edition. Direct editions went to comic book shops, were usually picked up by collectors, and CGC goes into all this type of stuff in that why newsstand edition more desirable. Is that it's the rarity factor and the difference between picking up your comic at a Eckerd's or a Walgreens or a CVS circa 1996, 97. That person who worked in that Eckerd's, Walgreens gas station wasn't taking care of those comics when they were jamming them into the spinner rack, when they were jamming them into the magazine rack. Comic book shops knew that their customer base had already started this whole collectorship thing, so they made sure that they attempted to put comics away in good condition. So you have a lot higher likelihood of a direct edition coming out a higher grade comic. Getting a newsstand that survives to 9.8, especially something from like the 70s or 80s, is a lot more unlikely to happen. So
right.
Yeah, and we can probably all thank Chuck for this because he has been beating this drum for a long time at Mile High.
So what did CGC do? Hire a bunch of people from CBCS?
I don't know, but didn't you had a phone call with them today, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, so funny enough, I was calling to check on the status of a submission that's been there for like 5 months and gave them a little hell about that. Actually, at this point, no, 6 months, 6 or 7 months. And I was like, well, while I'm on the topic, or while I'm on the phone with you guys, what do we have to do? Is there anything special we need to do for the acknowledgement of a newsstand edition? Do we need to select it on the form? Because I actively had a submission that I was putting together. And I was like, hey, I got a bunch of newsstands. You guys saw them as I threw them up. But I got a bunch of newsstands. I was like, do I need to go back and remove that line item, separate out the newsstand from the direct editions and find them on the form? And this person hit me with the surprise Pikachu face and was just like, what are you talking about? I was like, the email that just went out 10 minutes ago about the acknowledgement of newsstand editions. And this person was just like, and I'm like, let me guess. They didn't communicate this to you guys at all before they sent out this email.
They didn't get the memo.
And he was like, as they usually don't. I was like, ooh, somebody sounds a little salty. So this is a regular occurrence. We tell the customers first, and then maybe we'll update support on what the hell we just told them, like maybe a day or two later.
We all experience that at work, I'm sure.
You think they know that like a month or so in advance?
It's pretty important.
At least.
You would think so. I mean, as somebody who works for a company who tries to communicate out things before they communicate them to the customers, that usually comes in like an email, like a beacon or something that goes out to all the employees who might be customer facing. And so that person probably just didn't read their fucking email. Excuse my language, but that person just probably didn't read their email. And a lot of people are just letting these massive communications from the company wash over them, and then getting caught on Front Street, being like, "Oh, I didn't read that email, and now I have no idea what the customer's talking about."
So the plus of this is things get recognized the way they would. The negative, though, is the census data is going to be so wonky for so long.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, a lot of these books, especially the 70s and 80s books, have been slabbed already. So then you're going to get people cracking them, not sending in the labels, and getting the new label. I mean, the census is going to become.
I mean, let's be real.
More of a joke.
You can't trust the census as it is. I mean, I try to be good about sending these bastards back in, but I mean, I got a stack of them right here that I should have dropped in the box with my McFarlane submission and been like, "Hey, FYI, take these off the census."
And are we actually sure they do that?
If they're not opening emails, they're not opening that box.
You know what
I
mean?
I will say they do pull them, because I've gone back after a month or so on a big book, because I have a massive spreadsheet that I keep track of all of my, anything I've CPR'd with the old submission number. Until I get the book back, I still keep it listed under the old certificate number for insurance purposes, for reference purposes, and things like that. And I'll go back and when I'm about to clear something off that I know I've sent the label back in for, and check and run it through the census. And I've had they're pulling them. Okay. So if you send them back in the label, they will take it off.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, hell, I actually had to contact GPA this week actually for a no pay, because it was showing that my book sold for a price point that the person never paid for, and I was like, "Yo, GPA, take this shit off." This person never paid. here's clearly the cancellation. Here's all this stuff, and it was gone within 10 minutes.
Well, I think they probably take their data pretty serious because that's what they live and die on.
This is true.
Right.
So, all right. I don't know. So, I don't think I've ever actually looked for the 0 Hour multi-pack. Do people collect that just because it was on here?
I mean, I've seen them in the wild. I don't know. I mean, there was that huge, and honestly, I feel like the DC Universe thing was, I hate to say it, was started by Comic Tom a couple years ago because nobody was checking for those whatsoever, really, except for hardcore fans.
Deviants like Topher would be.
Yeah,
Topher loved that shit. But, I mean, it was a very small niche.
Yeah, and then it was brought to everybody's attention, and everybody ran out for about a 2-week period and started grabbing comics you could care less about. But it's a DC Universe edition. I was like, but it's a Teen Titans book. Nobody cares. Like that's not. It's worth $1 more. Congratulations.
Don't be picking on the Titans. Come on,
John cares. How dare you?
Yeah. I don't really, but whatever.
I was doing that dumb shit. I'm like, it's a DC Universe. It's like $2. Why not? It's like worth maybe what I'm paid for if I'm lucky.
Yeah, there's only a few that really sell. There's a few of the really rare, Funeral for a Friend and Doomsday ones, and a few other weird ones sprinkled in there really get some chasing, but not many of them.
So this is going to show my ignorance. Do they note the jewelry inserts?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
Mark Jeweler, yes.
Mark Jeweler is in the same. Funny enough, I've got a Mark Jeweler variant sitting over here somewhere in the stack of books that needs to go out. But yeah, but you have to trust that they're going to notice that it's a Mark Jeweler variant because again, there's no place to list that, especially with the new updates on the way the form's done now. Like you really can't do a good job of adding information to the line item. So it really is like you're at their mercy for them to notice that something was in the book.
I feel like this is going to open up a lot of errors on the labels, even more than that's going out now.
Oh yeah, and reholder turnaround times I think get atrocious because that's one of the things they mentioned in here is that they now have basically like a reholder newsstand button now that you can click on the order form, and like people who are anal about it are just going to be like sending these things in like droves.
But maybe they've bought a new machine and they figure they can make money on it.
Oh no, absolutely! Like this is basically a free $25 for them to just print you out crack your slab and print you out a new label.
Yeah.
Imagine sending your book out to get it reslabbed, and they're like, you know what? It's incurred damage while in the slab, so we're gonna have to knock that. We're gonna have to knock that grade down.
Now, see, this is a segue into the later topic about like that shit don't really happen that much. Like your book had to be damn near have caught on fire before CGC's gonna regrade it. I have never seen that happen before.
Let's segue into the one other thing just to mention. There was the Last of Us trailer came out. Did you guys get a chance to see that?
Yeah, it looked really good. Like, makes me want to go back and replay the game again.
Yeah, I mean, I never played the game, but it has a good looking vibe. It looks dark. It's got a good feel. Let's go with that.
And I mean, the cast too. I mean, like you got, Pedro Pascal is the father figure. I mean, for many reasons, Ellen Page, who the character was kind of modeled after, doesn't quite work anymore. Or Elliot Page, excuse my language, has both aged out and also is no longer identifies as a woman anymore. So them playing the character doesn't quite work anymore. So instead, they went and got the little girl who was Joanna. I think it's Joanna Mormont, the little girl from from Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, I couldn't figure out where I recognized her.
Yeah, she's she was the head of House Mormont, who died in Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert if you didn't watch last season. But yeah, she was like, for her brief period, she was pretty kick-ass. And I mean, every Brit can put on an American accent, so that's not going to be an issue. I don't know. I'm excited about it. HBO, for all of for all of Discovery's attempts at killing HBO and killing Warner Brothers, they're still pulling out quality content. So
I'm not dead yet.
Well, that one's been on the pipeline a while, so it's not like it just,
I mean, dude, they killed a $90 million investment. Anything's possible at this point.
That's
Like
fair.
they're burning it down for the insurance money.
That's fair. I just with Pascal and all that, I think they figured they got to take a shot at it.
Yeah. They probably end up owing people too much money because with somebody like a Pascal, he's definitely got probably executive producer or producer credits on there. So like people are losing points on the back end. A Batgirl's got just too low tier of a cast that they don't have to pay those people anything other than what they paid them to do their initial acting job.
All right. So as the slide hints at and things we have been talking about, we're going to talk about some stupid shit that other people tell you. So, you post a question on Reddit or Facebook or whatnot. You generally get at least a couple guys giving you terrible advice.
Yeah. And go ahead, sorry.
The first one that we mentioned was if you resubmit for a reholder, will they change the grade?
And unless you completely wreck that book, no, they're not going to bother regrading your book. Like something absolutely horrible would have had to happen. Like during the days of like the shaken slab syndrome when they were doing the weird sandwiching in between two pieces. And even then, like I'll be real about it. I had a giant size X-Men 9-4 where the spine was damn near crushed in between those two when they were doing that two sandwiching bullshit. Came back a 9-4. They were like, "Fuck that. We're not touching."
I had one of those books that I did get. They admitted, "Hey, it just isn't going to work anymore." It was a tick number 1, the black one, and it had done the thing where it shrank, but it had just done enough color damage that they're like, we can't put it in there. But I mean, like I said, it's a rarity. I had quite a few of those books because I was sending a lot in at that time, but it takes something exceptional for them to do that. And
ain't nothing getting me to reslab that Ultimate Fallout 4 variant. 0.0, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it absolutely does happen, but like the way that like you'll see people on the forum on Reddit, like basically like fear mongering, and on like on the CGC forums and stuff like that. Like, that's the CGC forum because most of the people who are on there have been like submitting books to CGC since day one. You see this more on Facebook and you see it more on Reddit, where it's like people who have maybe 2 slabs to their name and didn't even submit them directly themselves, like went through an LCS or something, trying to give advice on what the process is like for dealing with CGC or dealing with CBCS. And that's where I get ticked off because I'm like, by no means am I a dealer, but I submit probably close to like almost 1,000 books a year. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got a stack of 50 right here beside me. This is like my third 50 on, in the last 6 months. And this has been a slow year for me. I've got multiple boxes of inventory sitting over here. Like, it's smarter for me to slab things. I've got a good eye for grading, and I don't have to go through the BS of back and forth with people on eBay arguing about a book being a very fine versus a near mint or whatever. It's like, I'm not playing that game. The grade is the grade. You pay the price. So I've gone through it with CGC, in multiple different instances of books being lost, books being damaged, yada, yada, yada. And so I think I'm informed enough to be able to tell people, all right, this is what you're probably going to experience. This is what to look out for. This is how to optimize your submission, yada, yada, yada. And you have folks like where I saw somebody post a comment on Reddit being like, hey, is this book counterfeit? Like, I've never seen a slab, like the label on the slab look like this before. And instantly when they post a picture of the slab, I was like, oh, that's a magazine book. And they give 2 shits about like the quality of a magazine slab. And so like clearly seeing the perforation on where it printed out and they like rip it off from the string of them and place it in there. They didn't line it up well in the corners. It's just, they don't look good a lot of times. And this person, and I was like, as I'm legitimately typing, let me guess, this is either a Batman Dam or a copy of The Last Ronin, because it was a 9.9. I was like, yeah, if this is The Last Ronin or a Batman Dam, this is a magazine slab. They typically always look like ads. Like, it is what it is. Nobody counterfeited that. It just wouldn't be worth it to him to do so. And then some dipshit behind me comes in. It's just like, yeah, man, I think you got taken. You really want to probably send that back in. I'm like, dude, stop fear mongering. Like that book is not fake. And the guy's like, yeah, it's the Last Ronin 4th print. I was like, motherfucker, ain't nobody counterfeiting a 4th print Last Ronin. Like, what type of shit is that? Like, the materials would cost you more than the book was fucking worth at that point. Like, I get it, man. When people spend their hard-earned money, they spend their $250, $300 on their first slab, and you want to make sure you didn't get taken. But nobody's counterfeiting a $250 fucking slab. It's not worth the time or the money. Like, if this had been a 5 or 10G book, maybe that makes a little more sense. But nobody's going through the hassle of finding out a way to replicate a CGC magazine slab, like, or even going through the hassle of like trying to figure out how to like crack it just enough to swap the label. Because let's be real about it, it's not like them old slabs anymore. Like a brand, like one of the new modern magazine slabs in the current modern comic slabs, you're not getting into them bitches without like doing some irreversible damage to the slab. And for the sake of argument,
how long did CBCS put off getting a magazine slab because they didn't want to make it?
Yeah, it's a bitch. And also, for your reference, ask me how I know how much of a bitch it is to crack a CGC slab. Like, I've got it down to a science, but you're not opening one of these motherfuckers without tearing up this damn slab.
Looks like he's over there making Batman dams.
Yeah, I mean, the process in which I go through opening one of these, there's no way that you were going to crack the edge of this without splintering the shit out of it. Like,
no, and every time I tried, I cracked the damn thing in half.
Yeah. Oh, for anybody who's wondering how to effectively open one of these, get you a can opener. It's hilarious, but they work like a fucking charm. But you will not be cracking one of these open and having somebody not notice that you cracked it open. You're not going to be resealing it. You're not like, you don't possess the tools to melt and heat seal these things well enough that somebody's not going to notice. Like, so let's stop with all that bullshit. Like, that's just not what's happening.
Yeah, unless you're buying heavy duty big boy books, then it's not likely to happen.
Yeah. And I do see a comment though about somebody referencing, Cerberus 1 counterfeits. What was counterfeit about those books is like they were being reprinted, but as actually my local LCS got a number 1 real one in and a number 1 counterfeit in the same collection. You can clearly tell the difference when you hold them in your hand because the way they were printed looks totally different.
Well, and also like TNMT has a counterfeit too, right?
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, there's one thing.
But those were big print run.
Well, yeah, and also like there's big money in counterfeiting those books. Why the fuck would you counterfeit a Last Ronin 4th print? Like, what sense does that make? Like certain books just don't make sense to go through the effort. Like why would I counterfeit a Casio? Like, unless I'm just like in a place where I'm trying to sell, dollar watches. Like,
why do counterfeiters not counterfeit $5 bills?
Exactly. It's like it's not worth the risk. Is not worth the juice. Ain't worth the squeeze. Basically, in some of those situations.
So the other thing on that question is, I mean, some people aren't aware that there's different eras of slabs. I mean, CGC's on their at least 4th significant revision. I'm sure there's some other minor ones in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they had the original one of moderns with the burgundy labels, and then they switched to modern blue label, and then they changed to that really weird one that I hated. That was like, you almost pinpoint as that being like the more lax time period of grading, and then there was one more in between, and then we have our current modern style.
Yeah, so there was the new one, and then the new one, and then there was the new one.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. So like, if you are a newbie to this hobby, like, put forth the effort, do some quick Google searching and learn about but also too, I get it. If you feel like you're helping people and that you know a little something cool, but like, if you're just spouting misinformation, you're not doing anybody any favors, because then they're just regurgitating the bullshit that you just said to somebody else, and you're just perpetuating bad information across the hobby. And we don't need that. Like, it's hard enough, like, keeping people like honest in this hobby as it is.
So I'm going to throw this out there. So if there's anybody new watching the show, or after we get done and in the comments want to leave a question that you feel like you've got a crappy answer for elsewhere, one of us will come back and answer it with some real advice. So leave comments if you've got real questions that you think you're getting crap answers to elsewhere. And if you've got some in the live chat that you've seen or examples, feel free to share, because there's hundreds of them that are just terrible. What were some of the other ones we had? God, I can't even remember. We had about 6 or 7 that we had come across.
So the one that I'm always like quick to warn people about. It's not necessarily that it's just like stupid, but it's you got to be real careful about it. Is storing comics in a fireproof safe or a gun safe. It's like those things are not designed for that purpose, and the reason being is that fireproof safes contain like there's materials inside of them that help maintain moisture inside of environment. Ultimately, the reason why a fireproof safe even works the way it does is because it keeps the ambient temperature a little bit lower inside the environment and keeps enough moisture so that surrounding fire doesn't heat up the environment, suck out all the moisture, and cause the things inside of it to combust. Well, you know what also happens when an environment that maintains a heavy amount of moisture? Shit rust and foxing happens. So when you have staples inside of paper, you're going to have foxing and you're going to have rust form if you start keeping comics inside of the safe. So you got to be real careful about that, because if it can't breathe, it will start to rust. And you'll even see it with certain types of weapons stored inside of a gun safe. Like certain types of guns, if you have not properly oiled them, they will start to rust inside of a gun safe. One of my buddies just had it happen to him recently because he moved down here to Georgia and had his guns in his safe for about 2 or 3 months. And some of them shits came out with patches of rust on them because of the environment that a gun safe produces. So as a rule, probably don't keep or either add silica beads, like a huge stack of silica beads into the bottom of your safe to keep the moisture down. But you don't want to necessarily do that because it's not going to be good for your comics.
So I use a gun safe for mine, but more for security, not fire per se. I mean, honestly, my opinions if fire happens, I'm probably fucked because they're all in plastic, I don't feel confident that would survive it, but I do use it, and I think it also probably depends. Moderns versus older books, and all these things are variables. The dollar amount you're dealing with, and who you are. But I bought some reusable on Amazon, reusable like big desiccant bags. They're like the size of a big freaking Idaho potato, and I have a few of them that are just microwave a couple times a month and throw them back in there to keep the moisture down.
Yeah, so I mean that's a brilliant understanding that does happen and taking precautions to avoid it happening. Yeah, you're safe to go, but there's too many stories, and I've personally witnessed people pull out books that they haven't looked at in 5 or 10 years, and it's like, how did this rust? How did the staple rust? It was because you haven't opened that door in 5 years, and there was moisture trapped inside of it, and it couldn't go anywhere, so it went inside that staple and it went inside that paper.
It also depends your environment. Like if you keep it in a basement, it's going to be worse. If you keep, if you're in Georgia, it's going to be worse than if you're in Arizona.
Oh yeah.
All these things are factors. Honestly, if you do, not that many people do it now, but some people still do safety deposit boxes. You should have a desiccant in there just to be safe.
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception too that people think those slabs are completely sealed. They're not.
They are not. There's a crack of space at the top and the bottom of the outer slab. And the inner slab is really at the mercy of how well they did the heat sealing around the book. Let's see if I think I have one in the trash somewhere. Yep. So again, if we want to zoom in, you can see here on the inner well, there is a heat seal that runs along the edge of the book. But if somebody wasn't on point with that, that's not going to necessarily hold against water. It'll buy you some time, but that is not a moisture barrier. So you got to be careful about that shit, because if somebody was on, the lazy tip and didn't get a good seal on this, air and moisture will find their way inside your slab. So,
and a lot of the older ones weren't sealed at all. So if you got old slabs, you're really,
if you got one of those clamshell ones where they're basically doing the pressure seal on it, you're just completely fucked, because those are just open air inside the slab. So
the original CBCS ones had a lot of airflow too. So just got to be careful with what you're doing with those. Like I said, Amazon and reusable desiccants is a big thing if you're going to do it. We all have limitations on what we can spend on security and what our options are. And at some point you get a book that's more valuable than you're willing to part with. So you've got to come up with something, but you got to do your research on what you're going to do.
Yeah, and I mean, also too, we did a whole episode on this at one point when we were discussing it on Modern Playbook, but insuring your books and insuring them while in transit and all the things. Like, just in general, make sure you are informing yourself as much as possible. Make sure that you are reading your insurance policies. Make sure you are reading the fine print on CGC's website when it comes to how you ship your books. Because I mean, there was a lot of people who were probably under the impression that if you submitted your own shipping account information with CGC, that they were at least they say that, oh, we don't insure your books. Well, that could mean a couple different things. That means that we aren't covering your books under our house shipping or our house insurance policy. But if you have a private shipping situation, that they would be covered as long as they put in the proper information. Well, CGC doesn't put in a declared value when you ship on your own personal account. And without a declared value entered in there, you're getting the basic $100 worth of coverage. So then you have to be covered by your separate own independent policy, blanket policy on your. Yeah, it gets real messy. Ask me how I know. Luckily, the books made it back to CGC undamaged. But for about a week there, I was just got a listing from UPS being shipment was destroyed, returning back to sender. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like what happened to my books? So as a rule, I'm honestly recommending people just go with the FedEx shipping at this point. Yeah, they suck. FedEx sucks really bad. And in some areas, it is downright criminal what they do with people's stuff. Because I've had them on CGC shipments, from Heritage, mind you. I've bought big books from Heritage and had them left at neighbors' houses with no signature, where the delivery guy just scribbled some shit down there. I was like, that ain't my signature. I don't know whose name that is. Where's my book at? Where's my giant size? Where's my X-Men 1? Where's my stuff?
Well, if you're really worried, take the slow path and let them do registered mail. I mean, it's going to be 2 weeks to get to you, but the post office does not joke around with that shit.
Well, FedEx is now. I mean, they fully insured through FedEx now, so you still get the speed and you get some form of protection. Now, again, it's the difference.
I'm more saying as we're heading to the holiday season and the porch pirates and all that shit's getting worse. You don't want to fight that battle sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I will. I mean, I personally am as long as my shit's fully insured, you know what? You steal it, you might be doing me a favor because it's damn sure worth more stolen than it is in my hands at that point. So,
I mean, insurance is another one I see a lot of people saying, "Well, how do you insure it?" And somebody's like, "I just use my renter's insurance. I just use my homeowners," and that's a death trap of waiting. Yeah, it's funny. I just literally paid my insurance premium for my comics today. They're like, "It's going to expire today." Oh, yes, sure.
Yeah, no, I stay on top of my comic book policy more so than I do my renter's insurance and my car insurance because I don't want anything being I always have so many books in motion at any given time between them shipping out to my pressers, shipping out to CGC, coming in from things that I've acquired through Heritage and things like that. I make sure that if I relocate, the first thing I do is update the policy of where I live now to make sure that there is no random issues of coverage when it comes to my collection, because legitimately, my collection is worth more than my cars at this point. So
yeah. So I mean, yeah, you want to be good about it. I use the collectibles insurance, which I've had no problem with. But I'm sure there's those ones out there. But research your policy. A lot of them, they'll, even if you talk to your insurance broker, will say, well, you're insured, but they'll insure you at the face value, not the replacement value, or all kinds of bullshit. So
yeah,
really do some research on what you're doing with that. So just check and see if we got any questions I should have missed. Nope, I think we're okay. All right. We got any more that we want to talk about, or we're moving on to the market report?
I mean, that's probably it. I mean, again, it's like you said, John, if anyone's got any more questions, here we go. How much does that insurance typically cost? So for perspective, on my collection, which I have valued at roughly $400,000, my annual premium is, for where I'm at, is $1,600 a year.
That's pretty good. I insured mine. It's either 100 or 125, and I got it at just under 700. So
gotcha. We got another question. Tips on shipping a $1,000 plus book through USPS. is honestly you can get up to 5K of insurance through USPS without going into the realm of registered mail. So Priority or Priority Express can carry up to $5,000 of coverage, and honestly, ship it express. Like if you want it to be in their hands as short of amount of time as possible, and from us having friends who work for the postal service, they treat Priority Express like it is like the holy grail. They try to make sure that things don't happen to those packages. Whereas with registered mail, yeah, it's going to be more secure, but it's going to move at the speed of smell, because it's basically whoever takes out the cage now has liability for that item until they lock it back in the cage. And so, and also too, it has to be in the possession of the carrier at all times, or either locked in the cage. So if somebody's running short on time, it just becomes a logistical nightmare for them to continue to keep moving registered mail. So registered mail sometimes will hit a spot and not make it into a truck, or not making it for movement for a couple of days, because nobody wants to just take on the liability or deal with it.
And they also have different paths for registered mail versus traditional mail. I mean, if you really spend a lot of time looking at your tracking, you see that different mail categories travel different routes, and registered usually is a slow trip for me. I've seen it take up to 2 weeks. My brother always praises the Priority Express. He's like, nobody messes with those.
Exactly.
I truthfully just sent, 2 weeks ago, I think I said this 3 weeks ago, I sent close to 50K worth of books to MCS. I just chose to insure it 5K and go with my collectibles policy, and did express and versus trying to do registered. And it was signed for by MCS, opened and done in under 24 hours. So the stress of waiting is not there, especially if you're heading into the holiday season. I mean, Priority, it's good. It's fairly fast, but now Priority's 2-day, 3-day, 4-day, and it all just goes in a bin. So if somebody's shipping flat rate express, or flat rate in a box and up to 70 pounds, they drop a 70-pound box on your slab. It's not usually good.
Yeah. So I'm typically for domestic, I am for big books, a Priority Express guy, and for international, FedEx overnight. So.
I've seen some FedEx overnight, and honestly, when I get books in, a lot of DHL comes in quickly too.
Yeah, DHL really moves. I struggle to find them as a means of, in the US they kind of slipped off. But yeah, internationally coming in, like DHL is the go-to, it seems like.
Yeah, so I mean, just package it well, spend some money on a box. Like don't chintz on it. If I send a cheap slab, it's a Priority flat rate box, a lot of bubble wrap, and usually go with that because insurance will cover it. But if I get to $1,000, I'm usually going to go with a heavier duty box, or I'm going to reinforce everything and go that way. Spend a few bucks to not pay for it later.
Cardboard, tape, bubble wrap is all cheap compared to that. So spend the extra $10.
Gotcha.
Oh, this was one I don't know this one. This is an eBay question. The algorithm.
I personally fight the algorithm by being a part of Facebook comment groups that don't have a problem with you posting links to eBay items. And basically, like, you're guaranteed to get like a couple hundred looks in a matter of moments if you drop it into one of those Facebook groups that doesn't have a problem with A, self-promotion, and B, eBay. So I will constantly just be like, 99-cent auction, and just drop it straight into that group of 20,000 people, whatever, comic book buyers group, whatever. And, I'll have like 20 to 30 watchers in a matter of like 10 minutes. So that's usually how I take care of it. Or if I've been slack on a book, like trying to shop it around, and then we get to like 2 days out, I will definitely then drop it into a couple of different groups, and that'll catch me up numbers wise to get more eyes on it, watching it, at the very end.
And I think the issue is eBay's also they want you to pay for their advertising to keep traffic up, because they're now that thing where it's, spend an extra 1% to 5% to get on the top of their hit list. So I truly struggle with it. I know Sean will do big auctions, like he'll do a listing palooza, so to speak, and get his total listings up, and then he'll throw 50 to 75 books that he knows are loss leaders up to get the 99-cent auction people going, and then he will catch a lot of sales of people that see his other books, because usually if you're buying something, you're going to see if there's other things there. Try and list things that make sense together also helps. But the eBay algorithm's a tough beast.
Also coupons. Like I find that like once I start seeing that hit of like repeat buyer, I'll throw them a quick 10% coupon on like, maxing out at like $100 on their order. There are very few things that are on my eBay store where that's like, necessarily going to be a problem for me. So yeah, I'll start shopping around coupons to somebody who bought a big item and be like, oh, here's a coupon for the holiday season. Like, or here's like, I'll build a coupon that's good for the week leading into Black Friday. And yeah, I mean, it helps people appreciate it. 10% off, $300, $400 book. I mean, it goes, I know how much margin I have left into the book. So, I'm okay with that. I'll live. So.
Miguel asked how to pack a slab. I think Paul did a video on that. I'll try and find it and link it in the comments later.
I'll also reference, I mean, just because I packed out a bunch of stuff that sold over the weekend, I'm a big bubble wrap guy. And I mean, I know Sean likes to, use certain, postage materials and things like that. I will do that from time to time, but I've just got to the point where I've just started investing in the huge rolls of bubble wrap. Like the small bubble, huge rolls from Office Depot, because they're always running specials on those.
You can get buy two, get one free and shit.
Yeah, but I've got 3 sitting on my desk right now. So 2 that I haven't cracked into and 1 that's basically at the halfway point. But I will usually take a slab and I'll do a solid like 7 or 8 rotations of it in bubble wrap, to the point where, most people know a slab's only about, about a half inch, a little over 3/4 of an inch thick. And I will have somewhere around 2.5 to 3 inches of bubble wrap, like encasing it. And then I will do I'll do a bumper. So I'll take a folded up sheet of bubble wrap, place it across the center, place one across the bottom, tape them to the book. So they kind of are putting pressure against the endpoints of one of these boxes, the 1095 boxes. Yeah. And so I'll use a 1095 box with a bunch of bubble wrap. And I may even slide in a couple of the old CGC separators, just to get me a little bit more face protection in case like something punctures it.
Yes,
that'll hopefully slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, I've used that technique for, I don't know, sometimes you just get a vibe, holiday season, or a book that's a little more than average. I'll throw some extra cardboard on the 2 sides to stop the breakage.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm shipping a $5,000 or $10,000 book, like I'll just eat the like shipping costs. Like you didn't have to pay for the shipping anyway, and I'm gonna use one of these like monster CGC thick wall boxes and just like bubble wrap it to high fucking hell.
Yeah, you get in the big time books, you buy better boxes. I mean, I sent the stuff to MCS. I actually repurposed a CGC slab box and just sent it right back down to them, because I'm like, if you're gonna send heavy duty boxes, go with it. One tip that I randomly stumbled into is I was sending, I think it was like 50 books to CGC one time. My wife had got something in a cooler box, like the styrofoam coolers, and it had the cardboard outside, and the damn books fit in there perfect. But like that stuff's got so much crush protection, it was great. So, random tip if you're looking to reuse shit that you have.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's head on to the market report. Feel free to, again, hit us in the comments afterwards if you're watching later, and we will try and answer all those. I'll put the CEO on it because he's on vacation today. All right, let me get my stuff together because I'm slow here. Start with the classic, the good old 300. Seeing a little bit of life because they'd been selling under 5 for a bit, so just a tad bit crawling up. Not a huge sale, but it's good to see a little life coming back in, especially with all the bad news.
Yeah.
8.5 miles, which is
holy crap.
Yeah, down. It was in May of this year, there were 2 sales. One was 5K and one was 4,300. So this guy's down, I don't know.
Really? For 8.5?
Yeah, I was like, wasn't that 5K Nico's book?
Might have, one of them was. So, I was surprised, honestly. I didn't think they went that high, but yes, they apparently did. I didn't write down the recent 9.8 sale, but they exist. Just because we're on the Spider-Man theme, and this one irritates me. Why are people spending this much money on this book? I'm gonna pound my chest on this one till I die.
And in a 9.6.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me throw that $350 plus tax somewhere else.
I mean, 56 people bid on it. We don't think this is going to be the same dog shit as everything else. Even the good stuff loses heat at some point, and this is not that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum, but I'm not seeing the whole Madam Web thing being a long-term return on investment.
There are a million better bets. Here's one. Again, this is a book I don't shit on, but I struggle with long-term just because it's a team, and generally none of the team is actually in the movie, and so it's a weird book. It's gonna live a life for a while, but I would bet on this over Madam Web. I mean, this is true MCU versus Sony and their turd show. So this one I just caught because I saw it. I figured I better check in on what the price is doing. Honestly, looks like this has stayed strong for pretty close to the last year. It's been floating that high 5, low 6. A few outliers when you get a newsstand in there, but X-Men books and keys are kind of staying pretty good for these kind of newer ones. A lot of still people in the market and watching, so that's good. Big boy book. Shane Paul's not here. TNMT 1 first print. Haven't seen one of these in a minute.
My.
Ooh. One bid, buy it now, it appears. $12K. Honestly, I had no idea if that was good or bad.
I know, right? It's like, okay, so what's the real price?
That's at best I can tell. That's what it sold for. But in
August, what's the real value?
August of 2021, a 7.5 sold for $19K. So, maybe down a tad, but not far. I did, when I was looking at GPA, noticed there was a 9.8 sale on September 8th at Heritage. It was $186K with buyer premium included versus September of 2021. So a year ago, it sold for $245K. So top line sale is down 30%.
So you wouldn't be. So would anybody be surprised if this buyer turned around and put it up for 25?
Not at all.
No, I think it's going to take them a while to get it, but
I would do that.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of first print Turtles 1, so my friends who own an LCS recently acquired a collection, and 1 through 4 first prints were in there. And they just got the grades back on the 1 first print, 9.4 white pages.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So if anybody is a buyer on a 9.4 Turtles 1 first print, reach out to me and I can facilitate getting you in contact with them. Yeah, I'm not doing anything to try and take money from them for the facilitation. I just want to help out a great shop who, looked out for somebody who was selling a collection, and ultimately it them being willing to pay top dollar for the collection paid dividends in the long run. So
damn.
If you guys are looking for a Turtles 1, I mean, they offered it to me at first, and I was just like, I'm just not that big of a turtle fan. Like, I want one, but I don't want one that bad. I don't need a 9.4. So
I bet Paul can find some kidneys for it.
He could get a second mortgage.
Yeah.
He got an ass.
Oh God. Oh God. He's not even here to defend himself. On the other hand, this one was how far they've fallen. This is the Canadian price variant of the Archie #1 first, all that shit. Bebop, Rocksteady, King. This was $1,000 book last year.
Yeah, well, I think the newsstand might have been the $1,000 book.
I think the Canadian was up there. I mean, 800-900.
Maybe. I don't know. I think this is one of those scenarios where, and this is another reason why I'm not necessarily a buyer on Turtles books, is because they are kind of in the same boat as they're worse off than Sony properties and only probably second to DC right now when it comes to getting something going again in the near future. So if you're trying to buy these as a fan of Turtles, if you're an 80s kid, then buy your book for your collection. But if you are trying to flip Turtles books, you buy a $1,000 Turtles book, $1,000 Turtle book, and you might be able to make $100. They're not moving. I mean, yeah, there was a big fluctuation because of last year's market, but Turtles books don't really change in price too often. They're what they are is what they are, and they're the flip potential that is kind of hard to accomplish, I feel like.
Turtles is going to be like our version of Scooby-Doo. There's always going to be some edition, some version in cartoon and perpetuity, but live action is going to be tough, and it's it's only going to have so much of a market, and
it's going to take. I always think it's going to take a really hot video game for this to for the Turtles to.
Well, they've got that right now.
On. Really?
The Cowabunga edition or whatever it's called, they basically in the last couple of months released a new Turtle 4-player beat 'em up basher reminiscent of the old arcade game versions that were out. And there's people who are out there putting, who are getting paid by the company who put the game out to give it positive reviews. But generally speaking, it is a really good, well done, great graphics, great, playability. It's possibly one of the best Turtle games that we have ever had out right now.
What about something in the vein of the Spider-Man, Sony Spider-Man / Miles Morales video game?
I mean, I think they could do it, but yeah, I think honestly, more Turtles bread and butter is playing back on late 80s, early 90s nostalgia.
You know what they need? They need some Fortnite skins.
I'm not surprised they don't have any. Everybody seems to have a Fortnite skin right now.
It feels like they're missing an opportunity.
Yes.
So, this book just caught my eye. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a lot of talk on it in a while. I had trouble, honestly, finding any GPA data because I think it's labeled wrong all the time. It's sometimes the Ashcan, sometimes the convention edition. This Black Hammer was the belle of the ball for 2019, 2020 range.
Yeah, because that was the initial optioning news came out was right around that time, and we've heard nothing else since then.
Yeah, so it's been sitting a black burner. If you're betting on properties, I don't know. I wonder if Jupiter's Legacy kind of staled some of it, just because people didn't have the follow through on it.
Was there ever an official announcement for Black Hammer or no?
No, there absolutely was. There was back in 20. It was right around the time I got back into the hobby pretty hardcore. There was a Black Hammer. There was an announcement that it had been optioned, and then you get the lull, and then Jeff Lemire posted to his Twitter or somewhere that he had the initial draft of the script. He posted a picture of that classic script shot, Black Hammer across the front of it, and then they started selling some more, and then nothing for the last 4 years. I mean, the same thing happened with God Country. You had the initial announcement that it had been optioned, and then for about a year and a half, nothing. And then Kate's was just I just finished the first draft of it, and then they soared up in price again, and now nothing again. And I mean, that's the problem with this indie stuff. I mean, case in point, I've got a copy of Bang #1 sitting here that I pulled out one of my short boxes. I'm not even bothering grading it. I'm it's probably going to be 5 years before that we get the next worthwhile announcement out of it. I mean, Lady Killer was optioned. We ain't heard shit about that. Some of these
turn into turds. I mean, The Kitchen didn't do anything. It just was. It isn't. It's not a comic. It's not mentally a comic property. Some of them. Now this is superhero, so I think it's got a better base. I think superheroes, people connect to the comics more. I think when they're not some type of property they can relate to the comics, they don't even know it's a comic.
No, I mean you're not wrong, but it's funny because for a minute there you could at least like get rich quick or make you some quick cash off of like the indie optioning like cycle.
Oh man, I remember those days.
But none of that shit ever made it anywhere. But somehow we were still able to sell books. Like, I mean, we could just go through the list of things that have been optioned, and then we just never heard anything. I mean, it took Lock and Key 10 years to get to the point of a television show because you can actually track how many times there was a initial pilot that didn't get picked up, where they changed the cast and then changed the story and then changed the cast again. I mean, shit. Like, what else? Like in the last 2 years,
what actually hit might be an easier question.
I mean, at this point, Invincible, Walking Dead,
Jupiter's Legacy made it, but it wasn't well received.
I mean, Ogre was actually well received, but
it was a movie versus a show, so there's not that much.
Yeah,
it's a limited. Yeah, it really depends on who gets your property. Like HBO is the best.
Yeah, no, HBO is definitely the best if you want to actually have something happen.
Because they still do the old school rollout generally.
Oh, The Boys. Oh, Cowboy Ninja Viking. Yeah, I've got a 9.6 of Cowboy Ninja Viking sitting in a box that I'll probably never be able to sell.
That probably would have made a great movie though.
Oh, it would have been awesome. Well, I think the issue is that the person who was like behind it, Chris Pratt, everybody hates now. So not a good look. Yeah, Paper Girls. Well, Paper Girls didn't hit. Paper Girls bombed horribly because they got canceled after one season, and now they're shopping it around again. Umbrella Academy, yeah, that one was pretty successful. Sweet Tooth has generally been liked, but I'm not sure if it sold any books. Surprisingly, I mean, technically Vertigo isn't indie, really, but I mean, Sandman has been selling. Like the high grade, like 1 and 8 have been moving.
But that's a property that's been around for 30 years.
Well, but what I'm saying though is that like the people who are coming out of the woodwork now, like as somebody who like now that I'm back in Atlanta, I spend a lot of my Sundays hanging out at my local, my friends LCS, just kind of helping out. And people of all ages and all demographics are coming in and getting like old Sandman back issues. They're requesting and ordering the trades. They're getting the omnibuses that like whatever they can get in print. Like it's not people who were reading Sandman coming back and buying Sandman again. They already got their copies. Like 12 and 13, 14, 16-year-old kids, high school kids, middle school kids are coming in asking for, asking their parents to order them Sandman.
But to be fair, it's one of the greatest works in comics ever. So that's a different.
True. Like, I mean,
ballpark.
It's one of the few times, it's not a few times, but it's one of the times where it's a clear example of good writing, good works tied to a solid television production has caused people to care about the original source material again. I was actually having a conversation with one of my friends today. Is that say what you will about Marvel, but the fact that Marvel finally has synergy between the TV, the movies, the video games, including like bullshit games like the Puzzle Quest. Like there is synergy. Like when a new character or something happens with a character, they introduce a new skin or a new character in Puzzle Quest. They've got the Midnight Suns game coming out, which has the Midnight Suns comic book tie-in. They changed Agatha Harkness's design to match her TV incarnation in the comics. Like they're actually trying to do stuff that's going to cause maybe people to go and buy comics. And whether or not that actually happens, who knows? But there seems to be an attempt there to unify the world and have pay dividends for people to go back and buy comics in LCSs.
Yeah, they're using the machine, and they're doing it well.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm gonna check comments real quick because I'm not watching them, but see if there's anything. All right. DMZ is another trash one. Yeah, okay.
I mean, DMC, let's be real about it. Like, only hardcore comic book fans are reading DMZ. Like, you can't turn that into a series and be like, oh man, this translates so well. It's like, no, it really doesn't. Like, it's for like, it's like what they say. It's like it's your rapper's favorite rapper. Like, this is for comic book heads' favorite comic book heads. Yeah. And every LCS recommend DMZ during that time period, but wasn't nobody actually reading that shit. Let's be real about it.
Agreed. This one broke my heart a bit. It's that's a little over 900 US. Sorry, I only got the Canadian price because he's keep adding the seller name over the price. So we just talked about it a couple weeks ago how an SS sold for close to 1,500. So apparently an Adam Hughes signature on this book's worth $500, which is ridiculous. $250 a letter. I don't know. I always have a little special place for this book, so anytime it sells, it's probably going to be on the market report, and I apologize.
Yeah, that's roughly $967 USD.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a Canadian sale, so that doesn't help, and it's a newer seller, but still, it's just disappointing.
Yeah.
Some older books heading into the world now. This one caught my eye purely because it just said spanking panel, so I always get amused by what they found. They had de-slabbed this one. Don't know if they were doing CPR or just a purist that wanted to open it, but they were happy enough to provide the spanking panel for you guys. So, in case you wondered, I thought I did a double take on this one because I'm like, I know I talked about this book not very long ago, saying, "Hey, it's a high grade one. They never come up," and I had to dig back through my notes in the CG or the eBay sales. It is a different copy. It's not the same copy. There was a 7.5 that sold on July 17th. It was a buy it now at 16.5. So this auction, which Blizzard's a pretty big seller, got about 2,500 less. Again, right day, wrong time. Buy it now versus auction. Who knows? But very odd to see two of those in such high grade pop up. Another Blizzard book. I've only seen this seller sell this book, which is amazing to me because the first time I saw him sell it, he's like, "We've only had one in the past however many years we've been in business, and they're very rare." They are actually very rare. There's only 37 blue labels on the census. Top two are 5.0, so the top of the census is 5.0 times 2. And there are 65 total, which, 27 of them are restored. So not a lot of this one for some reason. Couple sales. A 4.5, which, mind you, is the second highest graded, sold in April for $30K. In May, a 2.5 sold for $11K, and in June, a 1.5 sold for $4,700. So, fairly strong sale. The third of a point jump got you close to $2,000. Yeah, 1,500. Pretty solid jump. So heading into Halloween, I figured we'd start. We're getting to that time of year, so I'm going to start throwing in some more horror books, some things that catch my eye. This is one that I just thought was a cool cover. Got the ghoulish thing and the woman in the great yellow dress. Honestly, didn't dig into the price on this one. Just more wanted to share that it's cool, amusing things to look at. Another one, I've seen this a few times. This one always catches my eye just because of the vivid colors. It's not quite a coal, but it's kind of got that wild color vibe, I always love the deep reds with the green mix. And Bernard Bailey. So excuse me, fighting a cold here. Couple more. One of the all-time classic skull covers, Witchcraft #2. I've actually had a couple copies of this book somehow. Tough Avon book. This is an incomplete, sold for $400, so still a fairly strong seller. Again, just for a cover buy. Pretty nice cover for the price. So.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, seriously.
You just don't also see a lot of books with the bright kind of yellow coloring to it. So it just really screams something different, I guess, is what I like. You also got that purple and red writing. It stands out amongst, if you put the top 50 pre-codes on there, that one it looks different. So that's why I love it a little bit. Speaking of supernatural, Phantom Stranger #1, the original Golden Age edition. Don't find this too often.
I've never seen this cover before.
I think Morello bought one. But yeah, I've not seen one in person. I know a couple people that have had them. But yes, it is a tough book. And, one of those characters that likely is going to kind of keep playing around the periphery in the DC universe. Don't know if that means anything, but he's there.
Right.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Ending one for Sean, Werewolf by Night. Got the special coming up. This book is actually down because the same grade sold in August 21 for $2,030. So we're at about a 50% discount from last year, which is a little disappointing.
Oh my.
A little surprised on that one. And then finally, the scariest thing of the entire thing as we head into, October soon. The mouse himself, the Disney Marvel 1000. The price threw me off. What kind of deviant put their top bid in to get that price?
Also, the fact that this was $1,000 book, a year or two ago.
It's true. It was. It's honest. I really like the cover. I just can't rationalize paying the money for it. But if it keeps going down, maybe I'll add it to the PC.
Yeah, so I got out at $5. I got bought in at I think $75 or $80 for my copy. It graded out to a 9.8, sold for $500. Thought I was doing well, and then it climbed into a $1,000 book. I was like, well, I'm a dumbass. So
you never know on these things. They have a weird lifespan. I think it's a book that will probably always be collected to some degree, just between the Disney hardcore. But yeah,
I don't get this book at all. But all right,
somebody's making money on it.
That's true.
I'm dying here, so I'm going to let you guys do pickups. Who wants to go first?
I'll pop it off.
I don't have anything.
All right,
what?
So I'm getting a submission ready. And so these are kind of in a weird order. They're in the submission order. Had a buddy who, lived out, and recommend this to anybody who's got friends who live out in the, that live out in the sticks with LCS that don't get a lot of foot traffic. He grabbed these the week of, 2 days after this book was everybody knew it was hot, and grabbed 9 of these bad boys. But he's just now getting to me though. So, oh well, I'll put in my submission and get him going. I keep finding these damn things in newsstands. I don't know what it is, but this book keeps popping up everywhere I go. So grab a couple of those.
Well, there are a lot of them.
Yeah. Pretty solid copy for First Gambit. Again, speaking of newsstands, grabbed these 2 bad boys. One's pretty clean, the other one's meh. But for what I paid for them, I can't complain. And on this point in my life, I don't leave keys behind.
It's a good shirt idea. Don't leave the keys behind.
Grab this because got a great deal in the set, so why not? And then the individual #1. So I bought the set and then I bought another one individually, just because again, why not? I think some of these I've shown before, so I got another Kitty Pryde newsstand. But it's a newsstand and a Mark Jewelers variant as well. I didn't realize until I got home. So that's
nice
awesome.
Surprise.
Right on.
Yeah, a little bit of Black Cat action I showed at the top of the hour. A little New Mutants action that I showed. But this guy, because why not?
Yeah.
I got a great deal on this bad boy. Sub $200 great deal, so can't beat that.
It's always a popular book. It'll sell.
But the piece de resistance,
a
9.8 contender of Primer 2.
Good luck on that one.
When I saw this book, I was just like, mine. I was like, I'm taking it and I'm running.
I have looked at a ton of 9.6 in slabs, and there's always one. I got to remember where it is, but there's always one little tick that they all seem to have.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, like this has a tick in it, but it's not color breaking. So I'm like,
you might get lucky.
What's the story behind it for it to be so nice? Still,
so this came out of a collection. So everyone, again, I keep shouting out my LCS here, Infinite Reality, comics and toys over in Tucker, Georgia. They got in a collection. It was,
Is that where the turtles were from?
Yep. So it was a son selling his dad's collection, and it was a monster collection. Like there was like I grabbed two of the sets of Wolverine limited editions. Like we started flipping through them. I was like, this is signed by Frank Miller. This is signed by Frank Miller. This is signed by I was like, let's go ahead and put these to the side. Like dude had a whole set of the limited series in high grade, all signed by Miller. I like a dumbass. Like I think I told the story like 2 weeks ago where somebody called in and was just like, "Oh, you guys got an ASM 252?" And I look at the wall. I was like, "Yeah, they got one." And as I pick it up, he's like, "Oh, what's the grade on it?" And I look at it and I was just like, "This book's probably a 9.8. So if you don't come get it, I'm taking it." And dude showed up. But yeah, I mean, like there was just like this dude, and many of these things weren't boarded. They were all bagged, but they weren't boarded. But they were in pristine condition. I mean, a couple of them have a little bit of staple rust happening, but that happens because the son, I think, stored them in his basement for 10 years. But yeah, I mean, they just keep finding gold in this back in this collection. Like that primer wasn't found on the third, fourth, fifth, or seventh pass of that collection. Like somebody went through the other day and was just like, "Oh, there's a primer too in here." I was like. So yeah, if you guys are really in the market for books, like they are still cataloging, going through. It was something like I think close to 30 long boxes of a collection. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. So
right on.
Yeah. But that's it for my pickups for the week.
Really, nothing, Mercenot?
I can't find my books.
All
They're somewhere.
All right, so you did mention that October's coming up, so it's my time to shine. You pick these up on Whatnot. Got some Betty and Veronica action. Got the Silver Surfer 4 homage.
Nice.
And then Friday the 13th, just a pretty sweet cover.
I do like that one.
And then because for some reason when I look for books for several years, I find one and then another one pops up a week later. So I ended up getting another TikTok Tales.
Is that your second or your third?
This is my second of number 23. I have one number 27. It's the same cover. So looked for that book for about 10 years and bought one. And then another one popped up about a week later. So that's how it goes. But that's all I got. Nothing special.
All right. I think I've stopped coughing for a minute, so I'll show my one book. Snagged one foreign off of eBay, the French Canadian Jungle Action 5. It was a good price. Figured why not? These edition heritages are kind of tough. The Canadians don't seem to want to let them go, so I grab them when I see a good deal on them.
I like the white up top.
Yeah, right. It's got a nice vibe. So
okay, so that's French Canadian. So the actual Canadian, is it similar or like similar graphics? Or
no, I mean if there's a traditional Canadian, it'd be a Canadian price variant, which depends on what year, because some of them were just dual priced. I don't know off the top of my head on this one, but the French Canadian is like that. What is it? Quebec that speaks French is the official language. So just printed for that section, and they were traditionally a lot of them are bigger. A lot of double comics, a lot of mixed ones, but not all of them. So yeah, the French Canadians are tough. I mean, you just think how small a market you're talking about versus not. So. Anybody got anything else to add to the week? No. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all. It's East Coasters are only on, so we're trying to get to bed tonight. But we appreciate y'all coming out again. If you got any comments you want to leave about stupid questions that you've gotten poor answers for, or want to share a story about it, please do. Otherwise, thank you all. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.